Hey, this is another podcast. This time I've got WallabeeBeatle again, and the reason I got him is because he's got pretty controversial opinions about the in-game leaders. Like, at one moment he's like, Zeus is fucking terrible. The next moment he's like, yeah, but he's still underrated compared to the way the rest of these plebs like hate on him. And
yeah, I think Zeus is like the most
polarizing.
Like Navi's just misunderstood. I said that the other day.
Yeah, like and you go into like the other in-game leaders and your thoughts about them and general tactics and stuff. So I thought you'd be like one of the perfect guests to get on this show. So I guess we'll start off.
You don't want someone who has like really orthodox opinions who'll explain it. You just want someone who'll like really controversial opinions to rack up the fucking YouTube algorithms. I get it. I see your game.
Well, actually, I don't really care about the YouTube algorithms that much. Like, I'm at the point where like I don't actually think any of my views matter. Like, I think you have to break some threshold of like what 10,000 or something. There's no way I'm even close to that. So it doesn't. I don't give a fuck.
I just do it for fun. The YouTube stuff, the podcast, and it gets me ready for other podcasts. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's fine.
Yeah. So
all training to get to this point for this podcast.
Sure. I hope so. All right. So first thing I wanted to ask you was how you think about in-game leaders, like how you evaluate them in CS:GO. Like, what do you think it means to be a good in-game leader?
Well, it's just like it's very opaque, and it's almost like what Plato's the cave analogy. You have to like see the fucking reflection on the wall. You can't actually see the in-game leader himself. You have to see like how teams work through a progression of lineups,
mm-hmm.
or how this in-game leader is affecting things through a progression of lineups. So I did a little spreadsheet because I'm super cool for this podcast, and I actually put two guys aside who people would probably rate pretty highly at the moment, Nitro and LexiB, and I still don't think there's enough data out there on those guys to like really give them a fair shot. If we're talking about like historically the best in-game leaders or the best in-game leaders now based on a long line of historical data, because it's like, how do you distinguish Nitro's contribution from Zeus's? How do you contribute like, okay, this is just a team that knows how to play together from a guy who can create a completely new lineup a la Kerrigan and have great results. Like it's really hard for me to disaggregate Nitro's influence. And then, he's been, on the in-game leader role, off of it. So it's just like really tough. And then, I just try to like, I read interviews. I watch teams over time. I try to give people just a fair reading. Like I don't try to, okay, I hate Zeus, so I think that, yeah, he's shit and everything he does is shit and it's all just simple carrying it. I try to just be as neutral as possible. Even though I'm like an advocate for MSL or where person, people like to play and I give too much credit. Like,
no, you're not actually an advocate of MSL. I just think like MSL's like really, really hated for no apparent reason.
Yeah. I just think that like he has very like I was funny when I was rating him. I went through all my little categories I made up. Like he was like either an A or like a B plus or an F. Like there's just no in between. And that's why people don't understand, they just think he's an F at everything and he's terrible, or they just think like he's the problem, where he's clearly not. Like
mm-hmm.
That's not the problem with North, or maybe he is, but maybe it's like a personality issue which causes all these people to leave. And the whole problem with North this last like year and a half has been a lack of talent. So it's like I don't know the interpersonal relationships. Did MSL fuck like 5 of these guys' girlfriends in the past? Is he a hell of a player? Then we just don't know about it. Like I have no idea what MSL is doing in this personal time, how fire his Tinder is. So it's I would expect it to be pretty lit, but no, I'm just kidding. But it's hard to tell.
All right, so I'll give you my system then. All right, so the first thing I look at is, when I look at an in-game leader, I just look first at his roster, and then I try to identify the win conditions of the roster, and then how closely the in-game leader follows that. But that makes it sound like arrogant, like as if I have the right answer, but it's not really the case. I'm just like, here's what I think is the right answer. But if the in-game leader comes up with a better answer than me, then he clearly knows something I don't, right? And that's kind of what happened with like FaZe and Kerrigan the first time around, because I thought there was no winning condition. when he joined that Kiyoshima, Alu, AZ, Jacob, that weird lineup. I didn't think there was a win condition there. It's like, it's all right. Like,
they had 2 top 4s in a row. Like, sort of an optic shadow. They had top 4 and at Elite Season 2 and ECS Season 2.
Yeah, that was after Kerrigan joined. I was like, before Kerrigan joined, like, they didn't make a fucking playoff for like a year. Mm-hmm. So I was like, no. Yeah, so I was like, yeah, maybe, like, if technically when we looked at that team, it was like, there's a bunch of skill across the team, but if there, in my mind, I thought if there was any kind of inherent chemistry, surely they would have lucked out once and gone to the playoff once, and they didn't even do that. So I was like, I don't think he was going to do anything with that, but then clearly proved me wrong, right? So that's my first point of evaluation is I look at the roster and then I look at, can this leader identify the win conditions? The second thing I look at is like, this is way more opaque, actually, is like the tactics, the mid-round calling, and the draft, and like the map draft. And the reason I think it's more opaque is because that a lot of that depends a lot on your players you have in the game and your interpersonal relationship. Like the thing, like everybody used to like credit Zeus a lot in like the beginning part of Na'Vi, this iteration of Na'Vi, with when they figured out Electronic should have played in like a better role. And then he started making good mid-round calls, I think, at ESL Cologne. And then they're like, man, Zeus still has it. He's a fucking mastermind. Then you go to the post-game interviews like, oh, who made that fucking genius call to like rotate here? It's like, oh, that was simple. Yeah, right? It's like, well...
You can misattribute it. Right?
Yeah, you can misattribute like those genius calls. And those are the ones like people like get stuck in their head. Like, oh, it must have been him. Right? So that's a bit more opaque to me.
Famous Gambit, like double pop flash into... Pop Dog, in that round 27 versus Astralis in the semifinals of
round 26, round 27, yeah. But he did, and then there was like the other one where like Zeus just went dry, like one shot to pre in the following round, like that. Those rounds, like everybody was caught up in that moment because they're like, yeah, fucking Zeus should get a fucking graffiti for that fucking call. Like that's how crazy it was, right? But I think, like, even though those are, like, the tangible things people look at for an in-game leader, I think they're actually the most opaque.
Right.
Right? Because there's no way you can ever really know. And depending on what players you have, like, it makes it a lot easier. Like, just look at MIBR with Taco, without Taco. Like...
Yeah, I mean, it looks like 2 fundamentally different teams, the North American lineup versus the previous lineups, right?
Mm-hmm. Then the last thing I look at is actually player form, and that's
individual skill.
No, like not individual skill, but like how a player performs when they get onto this guy's roster.
Okay.
So that's why I actually rate MSL really highly. I also rate Kerrigan really highly. Fallen kind of like it depends on what like he actually has a bunch of limits people aren't willing to talk about, but within his limits he's actually very good. And like basically when I look at it as like what did this guy do with these pieces, and when I look at those pieces in their careers, like how were they across like the period of time? Like if you think about FaZe, for instance, AZ's literally best moment, like final best moment, was with Kerrigan, and then after that he completely fell off. Like MSL couldn't fix him, Cadian couldn't fix him. The North organization
MSL gave him way too good roles for what he was as a player for the duration for that first year on North 2017, which may have led to
the fall of Magus, right?
Yeah, his decline and his departure, right?
Yeah, like that. I don't know exactly how that went down, but that's kind of
be a personal issue.
Yeah, it could have been a personal issue as well, but like that's kind of how I looked at it as well. As like, yeah, you can't like basically. I think like MSL misjudged AZ there, and I think that's a blow to like MSL's career as like IGL or legacy as an IGL, right? Whereas you look,
this problem is the same thing happened or similar thing happened with Pimp. This is another famous MSL story where it's like, oh, he's a great rifler, top 10 rifler in Europe, and then he switches to the op, and then everyone's like, MSL's a dictator, forcing people to play in bad spots. He's ruining people's careers. And then like if you ask him about it, I've seen interviews with him. We said no, Pimp wanted to try the op.
Yeah,
I gave him the chance to try the op.
And then he ruined his own career, right?
Yeah. So it's all very difficult to say. I mean, so the way I set up my categories is I knowing that it's confusing. I set it up as like tactic setups is like one category. Mid-round calls is another. Leadership, which is like very, very opaque. But how do I think he controls the lineup as well as we can assume publicly? How good is he in the pick and ban, which is actually, even though it's like the most eclectic, it's actually probably the easiest to judge. How good is he? How good are they at roster building, and how good they are individually? Those are like my 6 categories.
Okay, well the last, not this last one, the second to last one, I think is the hardest to look at because we don't actually know if they built these rosters anymore, right?
It's the GM, it's the money, but there's something where you're like, oh, why did he pick up this play? Like Daps picking up Cirque and Mixwell, I think is a good indication of.
Yeah, that's a good indication for him specifically. But like when I think of like the MIBR lineup. Like,
who knows?
Who the fuck chose Stewie? Like, I don't know. Like, that looks... I'll go ahead and say it, that actually kind of looks like a Noah Winston call rather than like a MIBR call. You know what I mean?
Like, oh, he's really marketable or whatever.
Yeah, and like he's kind of done that in Overwatch. He's kind of done that in League of Legends. He kind of talks about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean he did it. Like, and then the interviews point to like Fur being the one who chose him. It's like, it's hard for me to like pick that one apart, right? And then like when you look at the old MIBR lineups, like basically like Yanko like told me, Yanko basically said like, yeah, I agree. Like I wrote that article about like MIBR going back to the original roots of their GMing, which is like you just get you stick to the Brazilian scene, keep that team structure, and then you get the next guy coming up. Kind of that's kind of their version. And then Yanko's like, yeah, but like I agree with you. Like Fallen is like the most pivotal part of this team, but he also pointed out like we don't actually know if those were actually Fallen's thoughts about any of that shit. Because like in every public interview, Fallen's basically like, yeah, and then Fur's like, yeah, we need to get Coldzera, and then Coldzera's like, yeah, we need to get Taco. So was it really him at all making those roster construction changes? I don't know, right?
Exactly. There's it's incredibly opaque with the in-game leader thing. So I think you have to take the best guesses over the longest period of time possible, which is like, even though Nitro's been a top in-game leader for a year, I still don't want to rank him.
Yeah, that's because he, this is kind of like a classic thing I think about in Dota 2 is like they're in-game leaders in that game. Like they do go for like an year, but they do it with a very specific set of people. And then once you pull them out of that specific group of people, they utterly fail. Right. And like Nitro
only had two lands with this new lineup with Stewie 2K.
Yeah. So like with this Nitro version, it's like, well, what was he an in-game leader of? Like, if we just exclude everything before the Zeus period, he's basically had incredible players and he's had a great coach. People even say like he's probably the second best coach. And there's like a drop off between Zeus and everybody else below him, and then Zonic at number 1. That's kind of like the community like power ranking of coaches right now. Yeah. So like I don't really know what he looks like.
Incredibly opaque. There's like absolutely no idea because what they're doing is like morale. What they're doing is like how well they set their practice schedule, how the help of the creation of tactics. So maybe they're not tactic guys. It's actually almost impossible to rank coaches from my point. It like as much nuance and difficulty we're setting up and how we're just sort of putting a little asterisk to these rankings we're about to do with in-game leaders. I think coaches are incredibly like far and away more difficult to judge.
Yeah, like the only ones I know of that probably have done something is like Kassad, just because like he literally every team he joins goes in a spike, like immediately gets a spike, right? I think I'm a pet kind of. Like I think there's some weird circumstances around him, and that I think the first Optic lineup he joined was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that showed his weaknesses.
That was a clusterfuck. It's not. I hardly can blame him. But
yeah, I don't blame him, but like that's kind of shows like he's fairly limited. At least he's not like an all powerful coach, right?
Right. Yeah. He's not a magic bullet.
Yeah, like I think LMBT's actually been pretty good for Mouse and the Hellraiser before that, but that's kind of off topic, right? So we'll finally go into the actual ranking of the in-game leaders, and I guess we can talk about Nitro and Alexi B at the very end. We're not going to include them because you've already said it's too little data on both.
Oh, you wouldn't rank Nitro or Alexi B either?
Like if you ask me like a power ranking right now, I would, but since this is more of like a holistic thing, I don't think there's enough data to like fairly evaluate them compared to like the more historical in-game leaders.
Right. No, that's fair. Which is why I did it myself.
Yeah. Like I'll go ahead and think. I think we both have the same number one. I think it's Glaive, right?
Right.
Right. Because like he basically hits every fucking category you had.
I think tactics in mid round. I'll say like A. Like no one controls their team and like can make his like those last second critical decisions as well as he does. Obviously, Astralis is famed for like their ability to pull rotations and their utility use. So I have him A as tactics as well. Leadership is actually interesting for me though. Like that's a question mark /C. Like or like he's average or I don't know what he is because like
he's always had Sonic.
Yeah. As people always talk about Sonic, not him in terms of leadership. For pick and ban, I think he's like good, like innovating the.
You see, I actually have a question mark for that, just because if when you have like a 7-map pool, and I know you don't believe they have a 7-map pool, but like just relative to this era, they do. You know what I mean? Like you pick Train, like Train's their weakness. Well, who really can beat them on Train? Like just MIBR maybe. Right?
Well, Na'Vi,
MIBR is like 2 teams. Like it's still a top 3 team then.
Yeah.
It's like
I mean, Liquid beat them on Train.
I think that was like a one-time thing. You run that again, Astralis is going to beat them.
Maybe. We're getting off topic, but yeah, like I get your point. Like they have such a wide pool, they can't really fuck up the pick and ban phase. But like,
I mean, well, they can if they're like exist.
They have like versus North at DreamHack Masters. Malmo? No, it was
Stockholm.
Right. Like my average, like if someone's average is a C, like I think C should be the average. I think they're above average. They're not like straight bad at the pick and ban phase, but I do think they make some critical mistakes. And I think, he doesn't like. I just think that sometimes he will fuck up, and he's not like some genius or anything. I think he like will innovate stuff that's good, and generally Astralis mess up very few pick and ban phases. So he's a B to me.
I mean, I'll go ahead and say I did think they fucked up the final map veto for the major finals. They definitely should have floated Clash. Like 0%, almost 0% chance Enk was going to choose that. I think.
Yeah. No, I thought the same thing.
Yeah. So like, I can't give him
That's not as bad as like fucking Zeus. Up. I mean, I guess it's the exact same mistake as Zeus messing up the previous major final, like the same problem.
Yeah, it was like a similar problem, but the difference between like Glaive and Zeus is like, I don't know. In my mind, I don't think Glaive makes that mistake that often.
No, he doesn't. So that's why I think he's like good. Like I think them innovating like loading cash is like a really critical thing to them taking off in 2018. So he's above average, I think, in pick and ban phase.
All right. Well, I have one more question for you. Did you consider like the ability to like get new maps into the pool as an in-game leader quality?
I didn't really. No, I didn't, because I think that's such a team thing rather than a.
Yeah.
You don't have like how like if you're a team like FaZe, how is whatever in-game leader supposed to like fit players to spots they can't play? Like
I don't think that's possible, right? I think it's like all 5 have to be good in a sense.
They have to have like a diversity of positions that they can play.
Diversity positions,
skill set. Yeah. So like maps like I don't know, Nuke, that's very stratified, I think, in terms of what you have to do on that map. I think a team like FaZe or Mouse Sports is probably not. I mean, Mouse Sports
is pretty good.
Used to play Nuke, but like you need a guy who can play ramp. You need that guy who can sort of be annoying outside. You need a good opper to get all those little angles and lower. And support ramp. Like it's like a pretty specific thing, I think, for Nuke. And like if you're just a team with a bunch of aimers and like an okay rifle who's just forced to be on the rifle on the op, I think that it's like pretty difficult to play that map.
Yeah, it's like actually kind of the way I think of the old Liquid on Nuke. Like you had everything except the opper.
Right.
But now this new version of Liquid, they lost Taco. They don't have a ramp player anymore, so I don't think they can play it straight up. All right. So
also, I have a question mark for Glaive on roster building because he was just like inherited.
Oh yeah, he inherited. He inherited. Actually, I have him at C for roster building because think about like even though he hasn't had a lot of time to build rosters, like if you just think about it, he inherited this from.
He lucked into Magic's too.
Yeah, no, he inherited like Kerrigan's roster basically, like because this is like Kerrigan's brainchild in a sense. And
well, those trio have been together forever.
Yeah, or maybe you can think of it as a trio plus Caribby, right?
Yeah.
But basically, like Kerrigan's style just didn't work with that trio anymore, and he didn't know exactly how to play with Caribby. So Glaive didn't build that roster; he just knew how to make it work. But the problem with Glaive, and the reason like I have him like a C or D, is because he wanted to keep Caribby.
Yeah, that's a big mistake. I thought.
It's only one small factor against him. Like, and maybe he won't carry on, but that I thought that was like enough to like grade him lower on that.
I mean, it's curious actually if you want to think about. Charles recovered so well after the whole device debacle. Mm-hmm. I mean, Magic's was really sick this year, but even if Kirby is like just average as a player, in comparison to, I mean, I think Sam and Max get mad at me like when we did our player rankings episode of my podcast. Like I didn't rank Magic's very highly at all. I have him as 10th in the world.
No, I think that's about right.
Like I think he's just like lives the most charmed life of any player in CS. Like,
no, that's got to be well, there was Dead Fox.
I guess, yeah. Well, yeah, I don't watch too much fucking.
Exactly.
Just no one watches him.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe.
No one watched him for like years. Like he somehow got away with shit like I am the fucking team. I am Hellraiser. It's like
no, I don't think he got one. He got dragged pretty hard on that shit.
Still got paid. Still got to stay in that team forever.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, so did Edward, if you want to put it in that terms. But he got
all right.
Everyone hates him.
I hate Edward like in terms of what he's become. But I'll give him this: one of every 3 tournaments, one of every 4 tournaments, he'll turn it on for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, he's not as strictly bad as people say.
He's not as bad as Dead Fox, but he's a drag factor if you're talking about, I need to be the strongest.
He doesn't belong on that roster at all. Like, he just, like, they get such a better fit, and they don't. It's frustrating.
Yeah. All right, I'll add in my category at the end, which is, like, your ability to play with, how basically your players look. When the leader gets them, Kirby looked his best under. Actually, he might have looked his second best.
He looked his best on
MSL. This is like his second best career form was under Glaive, so I actually think that was still pretty good, all things considered.
Magic's form.
Magic's best form was actually I don't know. This might be his second best.
I think he's been able to sustain a high level of form longer.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's a fair point.
Not the same like insane peak.
Like his peak on North was fucking crazy. It's like he looked like I could be the best player in the world at that point. That's how good it was. But yeah, in terms of sustained peak, it's better here. I'll give him Magisk. I think Device is actually about the same. I don't know. Like I feel like everything around him got better, and now he looks like a fucking god. Dupree resurrected himself under Glaive, so I have to give him credit for that. And Zitnix is still Zitnix.
Playing bad spots with Kirby on the team. Like,
yeah,
he had to like reinvent himself as like a lurker, and then now he's more back to his.
He's back to his original, but like before then, like he was falling off at the end with Kerrigan. So I think overall, like I give him credit for like those 3: Magus, Kirby, Dupree. I think Zitnix is still Zitnix, man. Like I don't.
Yeah, I mean, like. I feel like the core trio really doesn't change that much. Like, even under Kerrigan, like, but that was with Kirby too.
Yeah.
Like, so I think they pretty much stay the same. I can't give them massive props for like raising these guys. I can't give Glaive massive props for like kicking them up to an insane level. Like, I just think that the team works really well, which makes their HLTV ratings or whatever, their raw statistics look really good. But I don't think I think they're all 3 of those players like are pretty much the same guys. I was just saying that on the last episode of my podcast last Friday. I just think that they don't really change that much.
Those 3, yeah. Like That's actually what makes them so good. Is like they have very similar play styles, kind of like all three of them. I know like Dupree's more aggressive.
Play styles.
Like they're all very versatile, but that's kind of like what's crazy about them.
Especially, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the way that that opens up for the other two players on the roster, like you can pretty much slot in whoever, unless you have like Valdi Zipnix would be kind of awkward, right?
Yeah, I don't think that works.
Yeah, but even if they did that, I think they could still make it work because Valdi's played different spots in his career and like done different things. Like they could probably make that work. But like pretty much anyone else in the Danish team could fit in. Like even if you want to put Yogi into the op role, right? Device could rifle, you know?
Yeah, he could, but like Yogi's terrible. Yogi is terrible. He's like he's another of Sam's crashed hype trains.
Yeah. But like even if you want to put config on there, like
that would work, right?
Back to lurker, right? Like you can put any star player into that Astralis trio and it'll work. So like I just think that that's why they're the best team in the world. Yeah,
I also think like I know like Sam thinks like Valde could do what Zipnix does to a close level, not exact same level, but like close to it. But like after this major, I don't think it's possible. Like Zipnix is like literally the best clutcher ever.
I mean, it would be a different type of success.
It wouldn't be this level though, which is kind of like
Valdi's a sick player. I think Valdi might be better than Zipnix.
No,
I don't know.
I think interdependencies between Zipnix, Device, and Dupree make it like impossible for Valde to like take his spot.
Okay,
that's what I mean. Like if you're carrying the one to one, sure, I think Valde is probably a better player, but like what Zipnix does for this team is just like ridiculous.
No, he's perfect. Like he's like I think he's when you're that good at your role and that niche of that, like I use support player, but that term's obviously very controversial. But like at what he does, he's so far beyond the next best.
Yeah, he's like a super specialist. I don't exactly know. He's basically like ascended. Like he basically broke the idea of what a support player is supposed to do. I guess like when I think of support,
such an extreme
example of it. Yeah,
of what it's supposed to be. Rather.
Yeah. So all right, we'll go on to the next guy. I don't actually know who you have number 2. Like I haven't thought about it that much, but my first instinct is probably Kerrigan.
Yeah, I have him as number 2. Like my honorable, like Nitro led the second best team in the world for all of last year, so my instinct is like, well, if you rate all the qualities of Liquid last year, they'd be better than the qualities I traditionally associate with Kerrigan. But like, it's hard to pull out Nitro's exact influence from that Liquid lineup. So I have Kerrigan as number 2.
Yeah, like
that.
Go ahead.
I think his tactics. I have this thing like B/D because at certain points, FaZe look fucking atrocious on the T side. Like it was really rough. Like on certain maps, if they weren't prepared for it, like everyone talks about FaZe's cache at some points as being like their best map, their like specialist pick. But if you that
it's like specialist pick by default. It's because nobody else plays it.
Yeah, but like if you watch that final versus NIP at what IEM Oakland 2017, at the very end of 2017, like that was a train wreck on cache.
Yeah,
like they didn't have that prepared. Like, so I think that Kerrigan's like can do those tactics things, but just like this last year of FaZe has like sort of been a letdown. I do think he's like a good mid-round like calling guy. I still think like in that traditional sense of what an in-game leader does, he's like a B. He's like solid. Leadership, it's like the fact that he just broke up with the Astralis guys.
I'd probably put him at a B overall. Like he does a lot, but he can't get like the last edge in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like he has like a lot of like B categories. Like the fact that he lost the sort of like personality duel to like Nico is sort of disappointing. Like he should still be the in-game leader. Like
I don't think he was ever going to win that duel because he's stuck on a team with all superstar players. Like they're gonna value superstar over leadership all day, every day, right?
Yeah, but like if he was a leader, if he was. Like he should be, if he is the leader of that team, he shouldn't have lost to like
you say that, but like think about this. Like everybody thinks Zeus is that leader, right? From Liquid.
Yeah.
he couldn't even control Immortals.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, no, I mean that's a failure on his part though. Like it is a failure.
Like I'll go ahead and say I think it's a failure on Kerrigan's part, but like I can't think of any leader that could have controlled those four.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a tough team to like lead, obviously, but yeah, it's not a good sign for his leadership. So I like have him as like a C or D, but like his pick and ban phase, I mean probably the best in the game, even though I still have like qualms with it at times. Like so, like A minus. Roster building.
I think it's A. Like, here's the problem. Yeah. Here's my thing: is like you can't pick a better map veto picker than him.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's just a straight out A.
Me.
Okay, you. but unless you're gonna go the I am a pet route and take over the NAC, and we're not gonna see that in game.
Yeah. No, I'm just joking, but yeah. Yeah, I think he's the best. So like, yeah, I guess you have to give him an A. But roster building, I mean, like.
I think he's an A.
Yeah, I think like because he can make lineups work. Like
not only has he made lineups work, yeah, like he's an A there. Like it doesn't matter what you give him, he'll make it work. That's what. I guess instead of roster building,
like, superpower.
Yeah,
like, that's his thing. Is like he can join whatever team and make it work. So like yeah, that's like his best quality. And then like for individual skill, I think he's above average for an in-game leader. But like
yeah, like basically he's a bit better than Exists. And Exists' best quality is he can win clutches.
Yeah.
So it's like similar to Kerrigan basically. Though Kerrigan does have this weird thing.
As like Glaive or like a Stanislaw or who am I thinking of? Nitro maybe.
Fallen maybe. Like,
Fallen at times. Like Fallen can look pretty bad, but we'll get to that later, I guess. But I think he's like above average for an in-game leader, but not by a lot.
Yeah. Like Kerrigan scored pretty highly in the fact like I think among all the in-game leaders, he is by far the best at identifying the win condition of the 5 players he has.
Yeah.
Like I don't think anybody else comes close.
Like styling a team around
a polarizing player, right? Yeah. They're like, okay, well I'm stuck with this fucking envious squad. He actually made it look half decent. Not gonna lie.
I didn't watch those fucking games, dude. I'm not watching that. I watched those envious games. I was at DreamHack Atlanta. I watched envious play. And,
it was enough suffering. Yeah.
Satiated. Yeah, on that one.
Yeah, but basically he's done it with every lineup. He always figures out what the win condition is.
They improved significantly. They almost made the minor, or they almost made the.
Made it out, right?
Made it out. Yeah. So props to him, but. Still not, yeah, his team was trash. Like, he can't do everything, you know?
Yeah, like, here's the thing about that. Like, I understand where you're coming from when it comes to the tactics thing, when talking about this phase, right? But I actually think no matter what he would have done, I think what he did basically was the best possible choice. Because when I look at this team, and I think about tactics, I think to myself, you basically need a system star, like a star systems player, like Coldzera. I need a true support player in the vein of Taco or Zipnix. Mm-hmm. And he never had either of those. Like, I know Olaf Meister technically like transitioned or whatever, but in my mind,
I don't. That's more on the CT side, right?
Yeah, it's more on the CT side. In my mind, like T side is basically the same as he ever was, kind of.
Yeah. He liked a guy who could hard commit, like that would be like a true soldier. He needs like a guy like. I mean, I think that the team might have been better with
Stiko
Kiyoshima.
Kiyoshima
instead of Olaf Meister, right?
Yeah, I think it would have been a lot. I think it would have been better.
Was the worst player.
Like I think he I don't know if he overextended, but I think that was an overextension in terms of the roster building. But like the idea was like ridiculous. Like, oh, if I get all 4 of them, and it did kind of work at the beginning, right?
Pretty good. Like I don't know how much it costs to get Olaf Meister, but it wasn't like a mega downgrade like from the Kiyoshima lineup to the Olaf Meister Guardian lineup. Like it's pretty much the same.
It's pretty much the same, except with like maybe I think it had higher peaks, but like the fragility was worse.
Peaks, right?
The fragility was a lot
worse.
Biggest
peak we ever see in CS:GO, like those 2 tournaments, E-League Premier,
and then the ESL New York. Yeah. But like it also introduced a lot of fragility into that team that I don't think anybody could have seen coming.
Well, it's also a clusterfuck with Olaf going in and out.
Yeah, that too. It's like, but. Like, did you see the interview Fallen did with Thorn? The reflections?
No, I didn't watch it.
Okay, well, basically, he has the exact same thoughts I did about that phase lineup. Where basically, Kerrigan's like, he recognized the fact that all he had were star players that want to fight. Mm-hmm. So he created like the loosest system possible, for all 4 players to beat the shit out of the other guys, right? And then basically the whole point is you put on a lot of pressure, you force these aim duels, and then once everybody's utilities run out, you're basically going to win because you're more likely than not going to win all the aim duels or trades or whatever. Yeah. Right? That's kind of the Kerrigan style. And then basically when they lost confidence in his style, in their minds they all thought, you know who's the best in the world? Glaive. And you know what Glaive would do? He'd probably introduce like tactics like executes and more structure. And basically by doing that style, they inherently like screwed over their strengths and emphasized their weakness. So and then that's why they kind of collapsed until they went into the stand-in period where like they were forced to revert back because none of them wanted to practice. So I actually don't blame Kerrigan that much for like how tactically bad they looked.
I mean, like, but at the same time, like he had control of the team, and like if he could command, like in an ideal world, he could have gotten them to like buckle. And,
I don't know if he could have, man. Fucking Nico's crazy.
I mean, yeah.
Like Nico is crazy. You got.
I mean, that's what I've never met this man. I don't read that. I don't watch that many interviews. Is this guy just like the most ballistic Bosnian man that's ever lived, or is he just like sort of a talented, a little bit arrogant 19-year-old who's like?
Look, I don't know, man. I've never met him. I'm just looking at his career as like, if he didn't become like arrogant, I don't know what would. Like, just look at his fucking career. Like, it's constructed in such a way to create the biggest ego possible. It's like, this team is shit without me. This team is shit without me. This team is shit without me. Version 3, version 4, version 5. Like,
and he's like the best team of all time for a hot minute.
Yeah. Like, in his mind, in his mind, I no doubt, like he thinks he's probably still the best player in the world over Simple.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I don't know. I just don't think it's possible. I just don't think it's possible to like. I don't think it's possible to corral this team into making them a good structured team. You can make them structured. I just think they'll be worse for it.
I mean, if you could get them to adhere to it, and if you make
like basically like if you
like, okay, here's what I would do. I'd keep think about this roster. I'd switch out Rain for Sunny, the most nominally efficient name change of all time, and yeah, you keep Kerrigan in the lineup. You have a soldier guy who's at the front of the pack, the guy who's willing to, I'm on a team of superstars. I'm the new guy. I'm willing to, put it on my back a little bit on the T side at least. The guy who does that on the CT side would be still Olofmeister. And yeah, I think the T side would be significantly better if they all feature the system. Like if it was like a Freakazoid Sean Gare situation where like he has a dedicated soldier now. Like maybe they could have like actually been a more coherent team and just instead of relying on like Nico getting a pick or Nico winning a duel or Rain making a play or something like this or
Is Sonny really like that though? That's my question. I don't know if Sonny's like that.
Well, that's just my I mean I don't know him either.
Like I feel like Chris J is more like that.
Yeah, he doesn't care if he dies.
Yeah, like Chris J doesn't give a fuck if he dies. I know certain if Sonny does or not because like he switches roles all the time. Yeah. So it's kind of I have a harder read on Sonny than I do on Chris J. But I get your point. Like, yeah. But that also comes down to the fucking like. This is why I think like his Kerrigan's leadership is lower. His point score is lower. It's because he can't really like force these guys to do what he wants.
Yeah, no, that's why I think he's like average to below average on the leadership. Like, it's really that's like is an opaque general topic, and that specific category is super opaque. But yeah, that's just my very limited nerd in the American South from talking into his computer from his room sort of interpretation of the situation. Yeah,
like I think I wrote this at some point, but basically if you wanted to make a Kerrigan roster work for a long period of time, you have to have a coach and manager who's willing to cut 2 of the 5 players every 6 months. Because basically that's kind of like Kerrigan's inherent problem, right? Is like eventually he'll lose the ear of the players. And then they'll like set up a mini rebellion against him. But if you just kick out half the rebellion, just get into the other guys, Kerrigan's instant strength of like, oh, I can identify the win condition comes back in line.
Yeah. No, I think that Kerrigan should just be I think he's fine what he does, just like a sort of a mercenary. especially in this era where like
he created this era.
Like we can just create international teams, stack talent, fix it, make a roster change or two. It works. Like that's what he's good for.
Yeah, like we didn't include it, but because I'm not certain if it's worth mentioning. But in terms of impact, he probably is the most impactful in-game leader in CS:GO because he basically
3 months.
No, not only that, but I mean, like he basically made everybody realize international rosters work.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Like changing the meta.
Like basically changed the meta of how rosters are constructed. Now, like half the teams are following him, or following what he did.
To my chagrin, I don't think it's a good shift. But
like I think it's a fine shift, but like the problem with them is they like completely underappreciate in-game leaders and support players.
Yeah.
Like, I actually don't think this shift is bad at all. Like, if I look at the French scene, they basically needed to do this shift like 6 months ago.
I mean, shifting to international isn't a bad thing. It just opens you up to talent with the sacrifice of maybe like cultural communication issues. It's the problem of like the inherent thing of like if you stack a bunch of talent together, they're only going to respect talent. And then they're like, oh, in-game leader gets kicked out and support player gets kicked out, or the reverse order of that, which is like the problem.
That is the problem.
And like just because Olaf Meister can kind of make it work as a support player doesn't mean like every team can make it work. As Mouse Sports has found out, as whoever has found out, as
MIBR found out. Yeah.
And maybe Lick will find out, but I think that's I think that's it.
Well, Liquid wasn't their fault. Like Taco left before they could do anything. So,
but I mean, he still could prove the principle.
Yeah, he can still prove the principle. Fair enough. All right, I think that covers Kerrigan. Mm-hmm. Who do you have as number 3?
I think it's a pretty close call between actually Gabi and Fallen. Like historically, I think you'd have to give Fallen the edge, but just like I don't know, this last year really soured me on Fallen.
This last year really made me up Gabi a lot until the
same thing where Gabi had, instead of that shitty NA NRG period, he's like has a legit team. He's going more towards international. Like Smooya being a little shit, like kind of hurt him at this last major, but I think overall this year is going to be pretty. I mean, if they keep this mentality up, I think that this like vision for their roster up, I think that they're going to be a really solid team.
Yeah, but like basically I had Gabi as second best leader last year. Who did you have?
For 2017, for 2018?
Yeah, 2018. I had him as my runner up for best leader after Glaive. I was just curious.
I mean, I haven't thought about it. I'm sort of like mine's like so currently, yeah, it's Gabi's third on my list.
Yeah.
As
all time.
Like all time, but like it's sort of like the rolling average thing, like
sort of
thing HLTV does, where like over a long period, but like more valuing the present. Like I don't know, in the weird rankings of who do I think is the best. Like I think right now, Gabi is the third best.
Okay.
Because than Fallen.
Yeah,
I think Fallen could eclipse him this year if he like whips out some old school SK Brazilian.
No, play. Like I think Fallen is better, but but the difference is like he's distinctly better at very specific things, but he's worse at other things. So that's why they're close. So I guess we'll go with Gabi first since he's your third. Mm-hmm. What do you think about him tactically?
I think he's the best, like right next to Glaive. Like I think he's a solid A. I think his mid round can be a little suspect. Like I think that, like especially with the older, like the teams that like were barely making it into like a top 8 at tournaments, I think like he did rely on risk in a way that I don't think people were talking about. Like stacks, a lot of gamble stacks on the CT side specifically, and
like
so that's like, but it's still he's still like fine at that. Like I don't think he's like problematic in his calling. I think what's really problematic I think his leadership's probably pretty average to above average. You know, it seems like he is in control of the teams. Though he did get kicked out of Mouse Sports a long time ago, right?
Yeah,
but, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, by Nico. Don't mess with Nico.
I think what his problems are is like roster building.
His roster building is fucking bad.
Yeah, and his individual skill, like the whole. I can't even remember the guy's name now.
Like Lagia?
Lagia.
Like basically Lagia alone gives him like near F in that category.
yeah. Like that's a D and an F automatically. Like that's really terrible that he did that and went to energy and all that shit in NA. Just wasted everyone's time for so long. Props to him for like making forgetting all the German names.
Next.
No, who's the guy who brought into energy?
Tapson?
Tapson, yeah, Tapson. I was gonna say I was thinking Tensky for some reason, but yeah, Tapson. I knew it was a T. Yeah, he solid pickup. Like he was just sort of an average player, and he's always been a lot better with Gabi, and yeah, like a legit star, like a really good player. So like in some ways, like it's kind of cool, but like I think now it's actually pretty encouraging that he picked up guys like Smooya and could make him work, and now he's picked up other name that I'm forgetting. Zentaras, right? Like who's like the...
We still don't know if he's actually working in this roster yet. Like it's too early.
Yeah, but I mean, like he's like the guy that everyone like fucking. You know, he's like the Frozen. He's. Like,
I feel like he's kind of overrated, but to be fair, I don't actually watch a bunch of Zentaras games.
Yeah, I haven't. Like he's the guy that everyone like creams their pants over.
They're like, yeah, this guy's as good as Simple. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I don't believe this.
You know, but Sam and Max have vouched for him, so.
Listen, man. They also vouch. Actually, I don't know about Max, but they definitely vouched for Yugi at some point. I think they did. I think they also did do Mertz.
Yugi, Yugi was legit for a time. Like his time on Heroic, he was a good player. Like I remember him like dumping on Gambit on Train. Like he did look good at points. Like he wasn't a bad player in terms of skill. It's just like I don't know what happened with his Optic lineup. It's like
he also did vouch for Space Soldiers as a team, not just Zentaras, but Space Soldiers as a team.
I guess, but
like listen, I appreciate his analysis. I actually think he has a great mind for Counter-Strike, but man, he believes way more than I do. He is totally a guy who's like angels in the outfield shit. It's like I believe, and I'm like no, I don't believe at all.
Well, anyway, I'm told at the very least that Zentaras is a good pickup. So I have some. I think the Gabi has the capacity for his image in that respect to be reworked. His roster building skill to well, I mean, even if I want to give him props for Smooya and making that work, I mean, Smooya did kind of fuck them over majorly. So maybe it's like a situation where he's maybe just not a good judge of character. So
I don't know. He kind of made it. He fucked up for like 1 month, but like he got him to work for like the other 8 or whatever it was. Yeah.
I mean, missing the major.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty. He fucked him pretty hard, but yeah, I don't know. So right now he's like a D or a D- in terms of roster building, the whole Lagicha shit. So yeah, and then individual skill, you could say he's been like better lately. There's that like one game where he like took up the op randomly. And
is he really gonna ride this one game forever? It's like I did it.
Yeah. He's like no, but like that's what I'm saying. Like, he's a D. He's like an MSL kind of guy where he's like even for an in-game leader, he's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I agree on the tactics point of view. I think he's basically one of the best. Don't have him at the glaive level, obviously, but like I look at the rest of them and I'm like, okay, what do I look at? Pure X's and O's. I don't give a fuck about the skill. Chemistry or all that, I think he's really high up there. Like basically, the reason I rate him so highly is because he kind of figured out his win condition for last year, which was I'm a shit player. Tizian, he's good for his role, but he's kind of a shit player. Next, he's technically a star player, but he's kind of a shit player. So what we need to do is we need to go double up, set up, and then hide the 3 of us.
Yeah,
it's like that's fucking genius. That's actually genius, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he, and then like it's just like the weird shit that like the way he like his team like will just use smokes is different than every other team. Like the way, just like the placement of them.
The placement of them.
Yeah, like just like on Inferno, instead of like smoking right there by the cross, like underneath the balcony, you'll smoke like further back, so you have an entryway into construction. It's just like no one else does that. Like I can't think of another team who's ever done that other than him.
Yeah, he's pretty unique, but like it's not bad, right? It's good actually.
Like, he apparently invented that like Molotov execute Astralis used Like he's just like a thoughtful, innovative guy, and like he'll just like get massive advantages off of
his brain.
Differently. Yeah. So like, I think that's like incredibly useful. I mean, it's like the stereotypic like idea of an in-game leader.
Yeah, he's all tactics. Like I agree. Like tactically, he's great, but like my problem is always going to be his roster construction. Like he basically dragged Legia around for like 2 years. It feels like. I think it was like 2 years, right? It's like, listen, I have criticisms about Fallen, but at least he didn't drag Tarek and SuDK around for like 2 years with him. It's like he kind of got the memo eventually. Like I got to switch out, right? Like
they made the whole world believe that they were a great pick.
Listen, that has nothing. I think that goes in favor of his leadership. It's like, man, I'm so fucking good. I can trick the world into thinking this is a good move.
Like it's like this like fucking 1984 shit. It was like, no, this is a good pickup. This is a good pickup. You know, let's face it, guys. That was a shit pickup. It's a mistake. Let's go back 2 years. Like I don't know. It's just a weird thing where it's like I wanna hate MIBR. Just because it's like funny.
It is pretty funny.
It pisses people off. Like it's like just the thought of like Lurpus reading my tweets and getting really annoyed is like enjoyable, or Yanko when he was there or whatever. Like I just enjoyed.
They're kind of similar to NIP fans, I guess. Like they like I don't know about any of the like bigger names, but like the casual names, they get super triggered. That's kind of funny.
Well, they were the best of both worlds. They both had like the hardcore like big names and the annoying.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Names. Fair enough. Like, but yeah, what else was there about? Oh wait, his map beetle. I don't think his map beetle is good, dude.
I mean, it's like I put a question mark on that one because I really haven't looked into him enough on terms of veto, and I also think like if you're a middling team, like
you get away with it.
I mean, like you don't really have a map pool if you're the 12th best team in the world, because you can just lose forever on your best.
I think teams are going to get there eventually. Actually, no, I don't know.
I mean, every team has a map pool. It's just like I don't know. It doesn't matter. So,
my problem with him was like I remember one time he picked like Nuke and he picked Nuke into a team that played Nuke or something, and they don't play Nuke. I was like, I can't give it this. It was like a best in one. I was like, I can't rate him highly on map veto, man. Can't do it, but. To be fair, I also didn't like examine like every fucking map beetle he's ever done. Yeah. But my overall impression is he isn't like a mastermind at it.
Yeah, it's not like we have this like huge pool of data where like he has a highly team for a long period of time with like a very discernible map pool like MIBR, Navi, Astralis, FaZe. You know, it's just like harder to tell with his teams.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically that's. That and the roster building, and actually I don't know. I basically skipped out win conditions on him because I don't really know if he had really great win conditions outside of like the Mouse one. There's like obviously you play around Nico, but like beyond that, it's like those are like the big question marks I had, and they're all going to be answered this year, I think, because he has a legit roster and he needs to make a new roster change soon because I don't think Nex is like the 5th. I don't think he should be the 5th.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. It's like he's sort of reaching like an MSL 2016, late 2016, early 2017 sort of scenario. He's for a long time now. He's just been like a builder, exceeding expectations guy. But now he's got to be like at when he's actually at that level where we can evaluate him and like see him put together a team. Like, how is that going to work out?
Yeah, like I actually want him to succeed because I think he's going to be the corollary to Kerrigan. Because like Kerrigan was like, yeah, you get all these loose stars, and you make a basic system, and then you can be one of the best. And then I think Gabi, if he makes it work, he's gonna be like, not only can he go international, but he can also make it a fucking tactical, structured team.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I want him to succeed. I just don't know if he will. So
yeah, it's yet to be seen.
Yeah, that's why
I can see why you could put Fallen above him because Fallen had so much success.
Yeah, so that's why I have Fallen above him. But I think Gob is pretty close, just because I was really impressed last year. But man, that Legia thing's like...
Yeah.
I can't get over it. That's like the biggest black mark of his career so far, is the Legia thing.
Yeah.
Alright, so move on to Fallen. So what do you think about Fallen's go with his tactics to begin?
I think at points in his career, he was like had some innovation. Like he brought things out like on Cobblestone and Mirage and stuff. Like I think that the old, like even going back to like Kaboom and stuff, like he's not a bad tactical leader, but I don't think he's like excellent. I don't think that's necessarily where MIBR or SK's strengths were. I think it was more in like their mid round and like how they finished rounds. They were like proto Astralis in my opinion, like the classic like 2016 2017 period where like I think their main strength was like an A mid round, or like a mid to late round, and like B tactics and setups. But the problem with Fallen right now and why I ranked him below God B is like the last year that just wasn't as
it just hurt you, right?
Yeah. It's like, well, is it the roster? Is it Taco specifically? Is it like the combination of players, or is it like does he not have this capacity to like? I mean, we always heard these stories like starting with Zeus about how they like did theory for like 4 hours a day. We just talked about situations of what you should do and like building the perfect like framework for how you should play Counter-Strike in the mid to late round and in the sort of the scrappy situations. But like, where was that for last year?
I was with Liquid and with Zeus.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, so I think like I have B/D minus, or like D minus is just like sort of an anger rating. It's probably more like a C, but like I'm sort of done with that narrative. Like, but it was there before, so it's really hard to rank him. In terms of leadership, I have him as like a C. Like, it doesn't seem like he's like.
Yeah, I think C is pretty fair. If you just think about all the different situations he's been in, he's never truly taken the lead, even though he's been like a totemic player in the team, right?
Yeah, and like even if publicly he's like the Grandmaster, I mean,
he's the Godfather
like
or whatever.
Godfather, right? Yeah, like whatever narratives you want to place on him. He did give up control of the lineup to Coldzera at beginning of 2018.
Yeah, and like. And like he never, like, as far as I know, like the SK negotiations were done by Fur. I don't know if you want to count that or not.
Yeah,
like
I don't know, but like it never seems like like in the tangibles, it doesn't seem like he's like this like Godfather figure. It just seems like a public persona in my opinion. So I think he's more average.
But I think in terms of like outside of game stuff, I don't think he's like necessarily like the greatest leader. Like you said, like C, right? But I think if you're talking about like in game like theory, he is probably among the better ones. Like
that sort of put that more on the tactics.
Oh, okay, more on the tactics because like I think
talking about leadership in terms of like how he carries himself, how he.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I think all the mid round stuff is like that's all like him. Or a lot of it is him. Well, I mean, it started with him.
There's this idea that Coldzera used to call the mid round or take over some rounds.
No, he take over like the overtime. But like when I mean like it starts with him is like he like that was like his brainchild when he initially started like the Kaboom stuff.
Yeah,
and like basically like it's hard though to pinpoint it down because if you look back at the old roster before they got Taco and FNX, they were playing a lot more execute heavy stuff that was off of like his tactics, and then they did that one tournament at Face It where like, oh wait, we can just play default kind of, and because FNX literally knows everything in my mind apparently, and Taco was willing to play his role, like it completely fit the entire roster, and that's when they completely shifted away from that old style. Right, so I don't necessarily.
I think they always had like a good control of their lineup where they could do like fakes, and then they always had like. I think he's a good mid, like classic. Except for this last year, he's always been a strong mid round like caller or like controller of the roster. But I think that's his like core strength.
Yeah,
but I think elsewhere, like he's actually really average. Like I think leadership seems it's hard to. That one's hard to say. Pick and ban, I think he's the most average, bland. Pick and ban phase guy. Like I don't think he.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think that's why I put him at a B because I really don't like anybody else's map veto.
Yeah, well, he doesn't make big mistakes.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. Like a lot of people, make mistakes, man.
Yeah. Like there's not like big pick and ban phases that like stand out either way. So that's why like he's like the definition of average to me. But like I get your point that if everyone's worse than like average is like,
then he's above average, isn't he?
Yeah. So yeah, I think like he's okay at that. Roster building it's a pretty mixed bag.
I think the first few years are really good, but like we don't know if that was him for Coldzera. I just gave him the credit because he was like the last guy that had to sign off.
Mm-hmm. And then like I don't know, it's the same thing with the last year. It's really soured him for me. Like
it's like
even like
last year, basically like reverse call.
Like a better pickup for this lineup. Like I think that would have been more interesting team. I don't know if
they couldn't have done it though. Like basically, remember that entire thing with like Noah? It's like, yeah, we're gonna pretend to get K&G. K&G write this apology. Good, get the fuck out. Like that's kind of what it worked out as, right?
Well, I think like it's kind of a bad scenario where their like solution to their problems of the last year and a half were to go back to the roster from a year and a half ago.
But that wasn't their initial solution, though. Their initial solution was Case Serrato.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I guess you didn't read it, but basically, here's how it went down. Right when they confirmed they got Taco and Zeus back, they made a list. Mm-hmm. They made a top 3 list of who they wanted to get as their 5th. The first guy they wanted was Case Serrato, but then like the buyout was like 600,000 or something ridiculous. It was like something ridiculous like that for like for an unknown, unproven player on the international stage. And basically, I think he was going to be Neil Boltz. I think that was the answer. He was going to be Neil Boltz. Oh, okay. Like just the way I saw him play is like that's kind of how I figured they're going to line him into the lineup. And like, okay, that didn't work. Then they went to get K&G. Right, that was their second on the list. And then like a bunch of the reports came out. K&G randomly apologizes to Thorne and FNS. Yeah. And then Noah's like, okay, good. Thanks for the apology. Get the fuck out. Right. Yeah. And then that's when they went back to Phelps. Like it's not. Like, when I look at the roster building in that sense, I actually don't think it's a bad choice. I actually don't fault him for going back to Phelps. What I do fault him for is the Stewie TK Tarek thing. Like,
yeah.
Like, basically, Stewie TK was a mistake, and then they doubled down on it with Tarek.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just like, last year's really hurt his, like, legacy and my perception of him. Mm-hmm. And then, like, even if he does succeed this year, like, how much is that as Zeus? Like, it just, I don't know. It's hard to say. Mm-hmm. I think that... last year's really hurt him, basically, is my perception. But he's like a pretty good in-game leader, one of the best in the world. Might even be out on par with Kerrigan, really, if he's like was the leading force in some of the best in
all the MLBR lineups, SK lineups, yeah. LG.
So it's just difficult. Like it's just like 2018 was a clusterfuck for them.
Mm-hmm. Like the way I think about like Fallen is. How do I say this right? Okay, basically the reason I rate like even before 2018 happened, I would have rated Kerrigan over Fallen as 1, 2, 3. Like Glaive, Kerrigan, Fallen before 2018 happened. And the reason I do that is even though like Fallen had like a way better career by that point, probably, and even though like his teams were like beating shit out of Kerrigan's teams, like. When I look at an in-game leader, I think of it in similar terms to when I grade a players. Like the reason I put Simple above Device or anybody else in the world is because he has to play in like a really bad team relative to his like skill level. Is like his team like it could be good on some days, could be bad on some days, but when it's bad, it's really bad. And when it's really bad, he has to pull out like fucking miracles out of his hat. And especially in the beginning parts of 2018 when he's like dragging like that fucking Star Ladder tournament is the single best performance I've seen from any player ever from Simple. And the only reason he couldn't replicate that performance is because his team got better after that. And like in a similar sense, like I look at like Fallen and Kerrigan, like Kerrigan basically went international. I think that's actually harder to do than keeping a domestic lineup together. So that's why I've always had Kerrigan above
where Kerrigan succeeded, Fallen failed.
Yeah. So that's kind of why like I think Kerrigan is better. It will always have like a leg up over Fallen because Kerrigan also did succeed with the Danish lineups too.
Then people would probably be like, but like Fallen built up the entire Danish scene while Kerrigan just picked out different international players. He just took the cream of the crop.
Yeah,
like it's like how you frame it mentally. I think.
Yeah, like
I think
like it's worth pointing out, but that doesn't actually account for in-game leadership for CS:GO. Like if we're talking about like legacy story or whatever, like yeah, like nobody can touch Fallen, like because he basically like dragged that scene from the dirt. Like fair enough, I'll give him that, but like that has nothing to do with CS:GO leadership. In my view, it's not like his. Here's the thing, like if Games Academy somehow created Coldzera, I'd be like fair enough. It didn't create Coldzera though.
Yeah, he but like I don't know, being in that roster, like I think Taco was like considered a pretty bad player when he first joined.
Yeah, he wasn't he wasn't that good before he joined LG.
Yeah, so like how much does being in his teams like lead to their progression? But I mean, like it doesn't create their fundamental. I mean, yeah, he doesn't create players from fucking dust and bone or whatever. You know, he doesn't blow life into guys or to like take Fur's rib and like create Taco. You know, but
like Taco's basically like if you're talking about like players building up under him, Taco's probably his best success story because he basically created like the second best support player in the world.
Even though he doesn't have like he's like Taco, everyone like you know, famously or famous
Maui Snow.
In my mind, Maui Snow. Yeah, like Taco like going off on it on Twitter. It's just like, why does Taco care about Maui Snake? Like, it wasn't even that bad of a. He just said like
it's like
2K is like
better at
70% of situations.
80%.
80% of situations.
Yeah.
I thought it was 70, but like even that's like doesn't necessarily mean that 2K can or should replace Taco.
Yeah,
because like maybe that 20% is what Taco does all game for his team.
Yeah,
maybe Stewie 2K can't be better in that 20% of situations.
And then Taco did, and apparently part of that 20% was getting to the semifinals of a major.
yeah, sure. No, I think Taco's a success story. It's like even if you're a pretty average to straight bad player, if you learn the right way and like take the right approach, you don't even have to have like a Zipnik's grandmaster brain. You just need to like have really solid
understanding of the game. And he credits a lot of that to Fallen. So I have to say, Fallen is really successful in that aspect, and that's why like I have him. That's also another reason I have him higher than Godby. Like I've never seen Godby really do that with anybody. Maybe Tizian.
Tabson. I
mean, Tabson was really pretty good before he got his hands on him, though. Like remember when Peter broke his leg on that fucking plane, and then Tabson had to stand in, and like Tabson hard carried them.
Was under Godby.
Yeah, but like, Tabson didn't join yet. Tabson was standing for that event.
That was in the lineup, though.
Yeah,
I was like. I mean, he never did it outside of his time with.
Yeah, maybe Tabson's a good choice then. Like it's hard, like, but even then, like I don't think Tabson's as. I don't think in my mind, I guess I don't correlate Tabson and Godby as much as I do Taco and Fallen. I don't know if that's fair or not, though.
Yeah, Tabson should just like have to be sent over to a.
But then he also gave us fucking necks, so like.
yeah. Sure.
So it's a wash.
Who you have as your fifth best? I think it's a close call between
Zeus and MSL.
Daps and MSL, yeah.
Yeah. Like
I have a super controversial opinion.
Between those three?
Yeah.
Well, like the problem with Zeus is like I recently read an interview from Adren. It was on VP Esports. Did you read it? It was about Zeus.
No, I'm not good at keeping up with it.
Okay, so basically it was like the wildest confession I've ever heard. He's basically like, yeah. So the difference between Blade and Zeus is like Blade, super structured, has a game plan, tells you everything you need to know. With Zeus, I'm not exactly sure what the fuck he did as an in-game leader. But it worked.
He just shows up in the server and is stellar. That's what Zeus is. He just like isn't really good at tactics and setup. He just like starts running his mouth in the middle of the game and people just follow and it works out. Like that's in my mind what Zeus is. Like what was Gambit good at? It was like after they lose the A site on Cobblestone, they somehow retake how they lose the B site. On Cobblestone, they somehow retake 3v3 every time from with Zeus, Adren, and Dosia.
Yeah,
Right? Like it's just like, and he even showed it. He was like, he's like a good in the clutch player. He's good at like those like scrappy rounds. He's sort of like like it's a very different than like Astralis MIB are good at like late round. But he just makes it work.
Yeah,
you know?
like
he just like makes teams work. That's what I wrote an article about Zeus. Like that's my big thing. Like, okay, say what you want about Zeus in this lineup. Say all you want about their bad tactics or like, you know, them not having cohesion in their game. I saw them make a great call versus and Suntrain where they just come out with just the perfectly timed in the context of the match. B execute, takes the site super easy, lickety split, free ground, takes control of the economy. Like some in-game leaders don't know how to do that. They're just panickers and they just like don't know when to call the right call, make the right call. Zeus knows how to make the right call in the moment.
Yeah, like when I'm looking at it historically, like I have to give Zeus the nod over the other two.
I put him as number 5.
Yeah, like I know like everybody hates on him. Was like, realistically speaking, like he does make shit work.
Yeah, he just makes shit work. Like it's just impossible to me that like Zeus had no influence. Like to me, in my opinion, I wrote this when I was at ESPN. Like I wrote a couple articles about it, but I think it's a marriage between Zeus and like the old Gambit core of like a trend Dosia is what like that like contrast, but like what is it called? Like creative destruction or something. You know, where there's opposing creative tension.
Okay.
Where like it's two different forces, but they somehow work, and in that moment, beautiful, right? And that's Gambit's 2017 Krakow win, right? Like I think that he definitely brings something. I think he's really bad at certain things. Bad at pick ban, bad at individual skill. Roster building is a pretty mixed bag. Like props for him figuring out electronic, but again, like we said at the beginning,
but I feel like it was it really him that figured out electronic?
Yeah, exactly. Or like, and then sucks for him that he's kept Edward around for so long, but like how much is that, or how much is the order being cheap and like not getting a new player, not knowing what player to get, and just staying with what they know. Maybe
like it's classic Navi. Like they'll keep hold of their old classic star players forever, like literally forever.
Yeah. I don't know. I see like Edward on those mouse commercials. I'm like, are they just keeping him around for like fucking signing, but for like sponsorship? Like, you know, you don't know. So yeah, I think he's the thing. His superpower is like Kerrigan's superpower. When he's on a roster, it's better. And you know, even if it's like less discernible about how he makes a team better, like it seems too much of a coincidence.
Like you can't get lucky that many times. Basically,
I think he brings something. I think teams under him work fairly well. I think that like his calls, like maybe not his tactics, but his calls are really good, or like better than most. And I think that like a great example, you know, a Glaive called that famous Tech 9 round versus
Virtus Pro
in the E-League Atlanta final. Like that's just a good like knowing the right mood, like knowing the moment. Like Zeus knows the moment. I think that's his skill, and I don't know if that like fits in neatly into a category. If like you look at it categorically, it like actually looks pretty bad for him, but it just works. And I think he's like, I think he should be more respected than he is.
Like I'll put it this way: I think he was a bit overblown after the Gambit win.
Yep,
definitely. But now he's like kind of underrated. He's kind of underrated, but I will say every criticism about him being a bad player is true, with the caveat that his roles aren't actually good for him.
Yeah, no, that's the thing that I've been screaming for the longest time.
Like if you want to pick a time where his roles were good for him, it's probably the old Gambit with Doja. Like it was like because he got better roles to play around.
Yeah,
and like
I mean, I'm sure there's a huge like if you just look at raw HLTV rating at Gambit versus Navi, like there's a huge discrepancy, like a 0.1 discrepancy in how, in terms of his raw numbers, of HLTV rating is like it's a huge thing, but he's still the same player. He's just in shitty like small side anchor roles now that are really hard to play if you're not a specific type of player. You're not a Zipnix, you're not a Valde, you're not a Raps, right? And he's in those roles, and if they had someone like, I don't know, Doja. I mean, this is my sort of hobby horse. I think Doja could.
No, I feel like Doja's out, man. Like, how many years does he really have?
I haven't watched him play a long time, but like, I just think they need that sort of player in.
I mean, basically they let C's die, and they shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, like, search the I'm sure. I mean, like, it's pretty fucked because of the whole like Vegas Squadron being like a fucking clusterfuck that you can't really like take apart.
I feel like you should go Avantgarde if you're gonna do that.
Yeah, I would have to watch Avantgarde and see which player fits, or if a player from them actually fits.
Yeah.
I mean, even Fitch.
No, dude, so out on Fitch. I think he just got lucky again.
I think Fitch. No, but I think they got him to play roles that were different than his old roles on.
Maybe that's fair.
Vanguard.
Like
on Gambit.
On Gambit.
And then it was just really random that he was successful. But I don't even know. I wouldn't know. I'd have to like search, and I don't really care to search.
Yeah, I don't care that much, right?
Because I'm not actually working for Navi, but I do think there has to be
a better choice
than Edward that would like elevate Zeus as a player by getting him in better spots, give him Edward spots, and then the new guy would slot into sort of the more classic support role spots. And then like this is what pisses me off. Like, people see Stewie 2K doing well on Liquid, but like he displaced Twist.
Oh, I hate that. I hated that.
Yeah, like it's just okay. Even if Stewie 2K's numbers look good, you have to look at the differential of what he displaces. Like, if this guy comes in and looks just as bad, but makes Zeus look better, and Zeus is better than Edward, like, then it's a positive trade. Like, it's about the sum total effect across the lineup, not how the individual player does. And yeah, I think that there's definitely has to be an option or two out there that would make Navi a better team.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Well, obviously we're not going to talk about Nitro very much. I will say letting Twist sacrifice himself for Stewie 2K was probably a mistake.
Yeah, I think as I've seen this Liquid play, even though they won that
by Power Masters
over Astralis, like, I don't have confidence in Liquid anymore. I just like Stewie 2K isn't a support player. Even if people want to say he's like a different style of support player, he's not playing like a support player in this new Liquid team. So I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah, but back to Navi, back to Zeus, I guess. Like, here's the thing about Zeus. Like, his style of play is consistent. He always does that, like map control, late round, make the mid call at the very end. I actually think his mid calls in general are pretty good. Like, they're not, like, obviously the God tier ones were actually simple, not him, but like, even if you exclude those, they're still pretty good. Like, I don't really have a problem with that. And like, he actually came up, I don't know if it's him, but basically Navi came with ideas like, we can't play Astralis straight up, we'll just do a bunch of gamble stacks. Like, that's fair enough. I will say he's kind of overrated it in that specific point, because I actually think, I looked at those VODs, like, the gamble stacks didn't work half the time. It just happened like Electronic bailed them out. It's like, oh, I got a 3K on this two players on ace shit. It's like, well, actually Astralis made the right call. It's just Electronic got 3, like, can't do anything. Right? Like, that's a bit overrated, but like, what makes Zeus good, I guess, is like, have you ever watched StarCraft 2? No. Right? So basically I'll explain it like this, right? Do you actually know the basic like triangle?
I went free to play. I played for like
an hour. No, like, do you know the basic triangle of like how card game decks work? Like,
oh yeah, like the paper scissors rock.
Yeah, paper scissors rock, like aggro,
control, aggro,
mid range, right?
Okay, yeah.
Like, it's kind of like mid range means aggro, control beats mid range, and then aggro beats control, kind of, right? Like, basically that's kind of how I think about T side halves. Is you're supposed to condition the enemy team into doing something with each of your separate moves. And so when other people talk about tactics, the general like idea I think they're talking about is like like how you threw this pop flash to take control of this area, then trade it into this area.
It's like
whereas,
I know what you're talking about. It's like the timing of the call in terms of
the entire half, right?
Yeah.
Like basically, I think
Astralis is really good at that, and I think that Zeus definitely has that, as I was saying before.
Yeah, like I think that's like, I don't know if it's superpower, but he's actually quite good at that. It's like he kind of recognizes the shift in momentum, or the shift in like, okay, so I psychologically forced this point of contact into their minds, and now this will create a certain setup in their minds, and then I can do something else. And that's something else.
That's really what I think ENCE was really bad at the major. Like they didn't have a good sense. They just like kept doing the same thing until it failed, and then they like, okay, now we switch.
I think I think they were bad.
Yeah.
Like I actually think they were good against Na'Vi for that. Like when you look back at their train T side, basically what's happening in that first half is they're just running execute. So like it falls along the lines of you're saying, like they're just doing the same shit over and over and over again, right? But from what I saw of it, basically like their idea was you're going to consistently grind out the economy of Na'Vi, and Na'Vi obviously is going to force buy a lot. So if you keep doing that, you're going to run them down a lot faster, and you're going to get more than 50-50. You're going to get like 55-45 chances. But the last round, right before the half, where like it was obvious Na'Vi is going to break if they lost that round, break the economy, they'd run the same thing, but instead of doing a regular split, where like one from Ali, like 3 from T-Con, 1 from Pop, they like shifted it so like it was 3 and 2. But like because they had conditioned Na'Vi so much that somebody's going to come from Ali, Electronic didn't do anything when like the execute came in, and they just took the site, and then like it broke their economy. So like it's hard for me to say whether or not they have it, but like in that specific T side, I thought they did.
I was thinking of the Astralis versus ENCE train game, but
they got fucking ripped.
Like I just felt very repetitive what they were doing in that game, but I could have to go back and watch that game with ENCE. But yeah, I think I gotta go in like 10 minutes. But so let's do you mind if we cover just like DApps and MSL real quick?
All right. So MSL tactically is probably as good as God be, I'd say. I think he's pretty close.
I think that
I
think that the Optic roster and the NRG roster are really different. And it's really hard for me. Like the way Max describes it was the way I like to describe it, is like big dick plays. In that he like, round 29 or round 30 versus FaZe, like ESL 1 New York, like, it's going to either go overtime or they're going to lose. They're down 1, 14-15, and was DApps call. He asked Breeze to rush down mid.
Yeah.
CT Inferno, like, all right, like credit to you. Or like running like a contact play versus MIBR round 30 into a site they lost like 3 times in a row. Like they tried to go into B cash like 3 times in a row, and then the third time contact play they surprise them, right? Because they condition them with like 2 failed like full executes. So I think that like the new, like that's what he's good at with this new roster. The old roster, it wasn't so much like a mid round or like a calling thing with Optic. It was just like pretty basic, like
no, he was pretty
going into an
like he was confident. He was like a B or a C overall in the Optic one, right? Like
it was just like a very specific thing where they like fan out and then they wait till 45 seconds left in the round. They like gather together, they throw and execute onto a site like over and over again, and it was just like pretty static. It like worked well enough, but it was like a pretty stable thing. And this roster is a really different thing. I think he's like evolved a lot as in-game leader, and because of his different different roster he has, like he's adjusted, he's like let them like take the reins a bit, or like he's adjusted his calling style to fit them. And I think that's actually a pretty great indication of him as an in-game leader.
Like basically the way I think about it is he took every failed experiment he had in previous rosters and he combined them all into this one. We're talking about DApps, right?
Yeah.
So like basically if you look at his very early stuff, he just ran cheesy shit all the time. Like we're gonna rush him, maybe we'll do an execute or whatever, but it's always been fairly static. It's kind of like what Kaboom did early on, except not nearly as successful. and then he goes into like the Optic lineup, and then he starts learning like more default oriented styles. That's what you were talking about. Then he gets kicked out of that, and he starts learning more like explosive stuff. And then he basically comes to this lineup. He's like, okay, so I actually have every tool in the roster in the kit right now. And so like even though like I agree with Max, like he calls them big dick plays or whatever, but like he basically he's kind of similar to Kerrigan in that he recognizes the win condition for his team is to let his skilled players go off. So Ethan, Breezy, Cirque. Like
I think that he's more shifted to a looser style. Like,
but he still has elements of the old style. That's what makes it good.
Yeah, like I think to me, it's like more of a didactical, like hot cold sort of situation where I think Optic was very bland and execute oriented, like fan out, get together, execute every round, and then like with this new style, it's more with this NRG team, it's more explosive, like you were saying. I would have to go longer into Daps' career to like make your sort of combination to see it your way, but I think that is like adjusting to his lineup he's obviously like he had Optic before Tarek was in the team, so he only had like one guy that was willing to go really like
and he also had like fucked up. He also had like the worst versions of other players. Like he didn't get the super Naf, and he didn't get like the super Stanislaw.
Yeah. So I think that's, and then I also think that. I mean, a bad sign for him is his leadership, like that he keeps getting kicked out of teams, like when Tarek
when Tarek comes in.
Yeah. I think his roster building's good, like his ability to pick up players, like I was saying at the top of this.
He's probably like one of the best scouts we have.
Yeah, scouts. But like the fact that he can't stay on his own rosters and then other people do better with the rosters he builds is like obviously not a good sign.
But I mean, it's only happened twice, and even with the Liquid roster, that was like a crazy fucking. Everybody had to get kicked out of that one, except for like two people.
But yeah, I mean, I think that Daps won't even stay in this NRG roster at the end of the year.
You think Tarek's gonna pull another coup d'état?
I think like Tarek is like gonna fucking knife him in the back again. That's just my feeling. Individual skill, I think he's overrated. Like I think because he had one good game versus Straws, like NRG's first game on LAN, I think must have like imprinted in everybody's fucking minds. Yeah. Yeah, I think that like he's a bad secondary op. I think he's a pretty bad player. Like he doesn't have a good skill set. I don't think he like almost like an MSL. He doesn't always understand that he's bad. He does do decently sometimes, but yeah, I don't think he's a good player. I think people are saying, like, oh, he's really improved.
No, I don't think he's a good player, but I think he's a good enough in-game leader to justify his spot as like a top X.
I think he should stay on NRG unless they're desperate. They can bring in Stanislaw. I think they should try a roster change or two before they do that. But I think Daps is the right person for NRG. I think, I mean, who else would you have lead like the second best North American lineup? Like no one. Like I think he is the second best North American leader, and I just put him barely above MSL.
Okay.
I think MSL's major issue to me, like I think his leadership's as bad or worse than Daps's. I think because he's lost so many stars, whatever. That's a failure on him on some level. Whatever level that is.
When it keeps happening over and over again, yeah.
Even if those guys were assholes and they were hard to control, like if he had like the right leadership, like he could have controlled them. That's sort of my argument, like with Kerrigan and those guys. Pick and ban is the big problem with MSL. Like that's sort of the
that's his Achilles heel.
Tactics. He can have good mid rounds. Like can have like I think he's like has like even better than Daps sometimes in the mid round. He's just like he just has like a warped perception of himself in reality, which is why he's so bad at his own game and why he's so bad like individually and so bad in the pick and ban phase. It just has like a horrible understanding of like how he fits with reality, which is almost admirable, right? That he's trying to overcome it. But
I will say this: everything he said is true. But technically, that's also the reason why he thought in his mind he could outduel Device with an op, and that's why he won that tournament.
Yeah, no, that's why it's admirable. That's why I like so much and will always like stump for him on podcasts and stuff. Like, yeah, it's amazing that he beat Astralis twice in the same tournament. Has any other team done that with this lineup? No. Like it's just insane.
Like that's the thing that tilts me. It's like everybody keeps talking about like Cloud9 wasn't a fluke. But like, fuck MSL, fuck his dream hacks. Like, no, he basically did the exact same thing. He basically did the exact same thing, guys.
I mean, if that was a major, like I don't know, people would like be bending over backwards to like betray all their principles just to hate on MSL. Like, yeah, he believes that he can do the impossible, and like he can make it work very, very rarely. Like, second place at ESL Pro League Season 5.
Yeah.
Second place at DreamHack Masters Malmo 2017. First place at Epicenter 2016. First place at DreamHack Malmo. Not DreamHack
Stockholm.
Masters Stockholm 2018. Yeah, like, props to him. Like, even later on, like in 2018, when he had a quote unquote bad lineup or a subpar lineup, he could still make it work.
Mm-hmm.
He like made it work. He won 3 tournaments. Like, 2 of them were really small, but like
he did way better. He did way better than North did after him. I'll put it out.
Yeah. Where's Cadian's not making anyone?
Shout out to North for listening to Sam about roster move changes.
I think it's just funny. That's who they end.
I can't believe Sam called that one. I would have never seen that come in a million years, but here we are.
The start of the next podcast, like before we even started recording, he's like, yes, so do you want to talk about MSL? I'm like, you're cut off from speaking for the next 5 minutes. I was so mad. I think it's legitimately stupid that they did that they cut MSL. I'll say that for the rest of my life, even if 90% of Reddit thinks I'm dumb and MSL like fanboy. Like, yeah, I think like it's a tragedy that he's in Rogue right now. I think it's stupid. I think he's wasting his time.
Like, since you have to go soon, I'll end it with this. Basically, I think I think Astralis conned North, and here's the reason I think it happened. Because every fucking Astralis player is like, yeah, the only reason we're winning is because of all that infrastructure, all the coaches, all the nutritionists. It's really the organization that's doing everything. And North in their fucking minds thought themselves, you know what? They're right. We just do all that other shit. We could basically have any random 5 players in there. And then they subsequently kicked out everybody else. And they're like, they didn't quite register in their minds that in-game leaders cannot be built. They either are or they aren't.
No, North is the cockiest organization. They think like the organization itself like wins championships, which is like literally the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, no, like you had really good players and a solid, if not
above average,
underwhelming, but overperforming overall in-game leader in MSL, and you threw him away. It was like you threw away all your pieces to keep MSL, and we threw away MSL. It's just like, you guys are fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Okay, and I get out of here.
All right, bye.
See you later. Appreciate